We welcome you, re-welcome you, we welcome you back to our Yizkor memorial service. The word Yizkor comes from the word Zachor, which means to remember, and this is a service of memory. Our service will begin this afternoon on page 538. Our tradition shows great wisdom in teaching us to gather for services of remembrance on Yom Kippur and on the three pilgrim festivals, Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot. These moments that mark the seasons of the year and the seasons of our lives awaken strong memories of relationships that shaped us, sustained us, and sometimes challenged us, and of holy days we shared with loved ones and cherished friends. When they are gone, we can still affirm the beautiful and lasting values we learned from them and remember them in all their humaneness. One of the ways we do that is by coming together as a community of comfort and care. From its inception, 1,000 years ago, when it was prayed by Ashkenazic Jews on the morning of Yom Kippur, Yizkor has had two profound themes: God's embrace of loved ones who are beyond our reach, and our commitment to do the good deeds that are within our reach by giving tzedakah in their memory. When we say Yizkor, may God remember, we proclaim our faith that those who have died have significance now and forever.
All Naharot, all Naharot, all Naharot, Bavel, by the waters of Babylon. All Naharot, all Naharot, all Naharot, Bavel, by the waters of Babylon.
Page 540. Like the stars by day, our beloved dead are not seen with mortal eyes, but they shine on in the untroubled firmament of endless time. To ask of death that it never come is futile, but it is not futility to pray that when death comes for us, it may take us from a world, one corner of which is a little better, because we were there. In the middle of page 540, we continue with Eli, Eli. Page 541. This is the hour of memory. and this is the house of comfort. Wounded by loss, we retreat from life. Our synagogue gathers us in. Into this place, we bring stories and prayers, unanswered questions, tears that need to be shed, lives recollected and carried within us, moments of courage and laughter and pain. This day embraces them all. This place embraces us all. Now the heart opens in sorrow, for we are time's subjects, and all that we love we must lose. So let us hold fast to the love that remains and cherish the light of the sun. Today all of us walk the mourner's path. Together may we find strength. And on page 544, we continue with the prayer entitled Shiviti.
Shiviti Adonai lanegdi tamid ki mimini ulemot lachen samach libi ve'yager yevoti av besari yishkon levatach ki azov nafshi lishul lo titain chosid chalirot todi eni orechayim orach chayim sova samachut et panecha ni'imut bi min chenetzar shiviti Adonai lanik tamid kimi mini ulemot.
We continue on page 546. The traditional Yizkor prayer asks God to remember the souls of our loved ones and to shelter them for eternity. But the Yizkor service on Yom Kippur has significance beyond the prayer itself. This is a moment set apart for solitary reflection, an opportunity to fulfill a sacred obligation, and it is a time to feel the physical and emotional closeness of community, the presence of other people who know what we've been through because they have been through it too. At Yizkor, we see the sorrow in one another's eyes. As the number 7 is a Jewish symbol of wholeness and holiness, our Yizkor service offers 7 ways to reflect on loss and memory, grief and healing. We choose alone and together from among these diverse lights. We pray together at the bottom of the page, our days like the grass of the field.
Gone never to be seen again, but God's love is infinite and with us forever. God's goodness reaches far into the future. This is the gift of the covenant.
And on page 548, we continue responsively. At birth, a miracle, you light the spark in every human soul. Together,
Emerging into light, we breathe it in, the neshama, your sacred gift of life.
and every day, every breath comes to us as a miracle.
The light within us, unique and precious, is with us always while we live.
When breath has ceased and life has gone, the neshama returns to you.
And the spark that lived inside the ones we love, unique and precious, beautiful and good, is theirs no more.
Their light is ours. Their radiance now burns in us, eternal flame of memory.
So we light candles to keep our love alive, to bring their light into the world.
A light unique and precious, ours to treasure while we live.
A ner tamid that lights our days and gives us strength to journey through the nights.
More precious was the light in your eyes than all the roses in the world. And on page 549, the death of a loved one is the most profound of all sorrows. The grief that comes with such a loss is intense and multifaceted, affecting our emotions, our bodies, and our lives. Grief is preoccupying and depleting. Emotionally, grief is a mixture of raw feelings, such as sorrow, anguish, anger, regret, longing, fear, and deprivation. Grief may be experienced physically as exhaustion, emptiness, tension, sleeplessness, or loss of appetite. Grief invades our daily lives in many sudden gaps and changes, like that empty place at the dinner table, or the sudden loss of affection and companionship, as well as in many new apprehensions, adjustments, and uncertainties. The loss of a loved one throws every aspect of our lives out of balance. The closer we were to that person who died, the more havoc the loss creates. Love does not die quickly. Hence, to grieve is also to celebrate the depth of the union. Tears are then the jewels of remembrance, sad but glistening with the beauty of the past. So grief in its bitterness marks the end, but it also is praise to the one who is gone. And on page 550, we die despite appointments and feuds, while our toddler, who has recently learned to say no, opens and shuts drawers 100 times a day, and our teen braces for the rapids of romance. We die despite the contracts and business trips we planned, when our desk is untidy, despite the long list of things to do, which we keep simmering like a rich broth. We die despite work we cherish, marrying whom we love, piling up a star-spangled fortune, basking on the Riviera of fame, and achieving that human participle with no known object. Life is not fair, the old saw goes. We know, but the saw glides slow, one faint rasp, and then at length another. When you died, I felt its jagged teeth rip. Small heart wounds opened and bled, closing as new ones opened ahead. Horror welled, not from the how, but the when. You died at the top of your career, happy, blessed by love still young. Playing by evolution's rules, you won, prospered, bred, rose in your tribe, did what the parent gods and society prized. Yet it didn't save you, love or dough. Even when it happens slow, it happens fast. And then there's no tomorrow. Time topples, the castle of cards collapses, thoughts melt, the subscription lapses. What a waste of life we spend in asking, in wish and worry, and want and sorrow. A tall man, you lie low now and forever, complete, your brilliant star eclipsed. Lost friend, you taught me lessons. I long to learn, and this final one I've learned against my will, the one spoken in silence, warning us to love hard and deep, clutch dear ones tighter, ransom each day. The horror lesson I saw out of the corner of my eye, but refused to believe until now, we die. We continue on page 553. Move to the front of the line, a voice says, and suddenly there is nobody left standing between you and the world to take the first blows on their shoulders. This is the place in books where part 1 ends and part 2 begins. And there's no part 3. The slate is wiped, not clean, but like a canvas painted over in white, so that a whole new landscape must be started. Bits of the old still showing underneath. Those colors sadness lends to a certain hour of evening. Now, the line of light at the horizon is the hinge between earth and heaven, only visible a few moments as the sun drops its rusted padlock into place. And I'm Peter.
Es Adonai eti miayin yavo Ezri es Adonai eti harim miayin yavo Ezri mi'im Adonai Adonai, oh, say, Shamayim va'aretz.
We continue in the middle of page 558. Let there be rest, and let it be at last the perfect rest, O merciful God, Most High. Let there be light, heaven's radiance, gleaming light of the holy and pure for my holy and pure one, whose corner was lit only by broken shards of light, not nearly enough to see by. Let there be in my life a shelter against the storms of guilt, anger, grief, and pain. When dark clouds gather above me, may I find a warm shelter of peace. And let there be a circle of souls around me, patient, persistent, filled with your compassion, and let us be bound up in a loving bond that will not break. Rest, light, shelter of peace, circle of souls, and give me the strength to praise. Continue on page 562. Haneshama lach v'haguf pa'alach husa'al amalach. The soul is yours, the body is your work. Have mercy on your creation. And on page 564, when you died, it was time to light the first candle of the 8. The dark tidal shifts of the Jewish calendar of waters and the moon that grows like a belly and starves like a rabbit in winter have carried that holiday forward and back since then. I light only your candle at sunset, as the red wax of the sun melts into the rumpled waters of the bay. The ancient words pass like cold water out of stone over my tongue as I say Kaddish. When I am silent and the twilight drifts in on skeins of unraveling woolly snow, blowing over the hill dark with pitch pines, I have a moment of missing that pierces my brain like sugar, stabbing a cavity, till the nerve lights its burning wire. Grandmother Hannah comes to me at Pesach, and when I'm lighting the Sabbath candles, the sweet wine in the cup has her breath. The challah is braided like her long, long hair. She smiles vaguely, nods, and is gone like a savor passing. You come oftener when I'm putting up pears or tomatoes, baking apple cake. You are in my throat laughing or in my eyes. When someone dies, it's the unspoken words that spoil in the mind and ferment to wine and to vinegar. I obey you still, going out in the sawtooth wind to feed the birds you protected. When I lie in the arms of my love, I know how you climbed like a pea vine twining lush, grasping for the sun toward love, and always you were pinched back, denied. It's a little low light the yahrzeit candle makes. You couldn't read by it or even warm your hands. So the dead are with us only as the scent of fresh coffee, of cinnamon, of pansies excites the nose and then fades. With us as the small candle burns in its glass. We lose and we go on losing as long as we live. A little winter that no spring can melt. Page 566. God restores my soul. What memories of my loved ones do I cherish most? Do some of my memories still hurt? How do my memories help me to live a better life? Blessed are the memories, holy and cherish the love they reveal. We pray, may our sorrows soften and diminish in strength. May the pains of past bereavements grow gentler with time. Let memory bring us nearer to the loved ones in our midst. Baruch atah Adonai mekor chachayim. Blessed are you, Holy One, who gives and renews life. Amen. My friends, each of us has a story to tell, filled with adventure and sorrow, excitement and disappointment. We each choose to record our memories in various ways. Some of us talk to others. Some keep a journal, others write a book. However, when we choose to share our story, anyone who hears us becomes a witness to our challenges and successes. We can try to forget, but the power of memory and witness far surpass most things. Today, Yom Kippur, is a day of memory, when we must set aside the distractions in our lives and come together as a community to witness the faults and accomplishments of ourselves, community, and the world. It's easy to try to ignore the pain in witnessing someone else's story. But the Jewish people are known as the people of the book because we believe in the importance of recording and remembering our trials and tribulations. Today, we're going to do just that. Our story begins with a young man living in Romania, speaking Yiddish, who spent his days and nights learning Torah, studying Hebrew, learning about humanism and seeing the good in other people, as well as in the world. His father represented reason. His mother represented faith. At the age of 15, in March of 1944, Germany occupied Hungary, and he was confined to a ghetto. Like so many others, this young man was confused by his imprisonment in the ghetto. He was shocked that the people enforcing the ghetto rules were educated individuals, doctors, lawyers, theologians, teachers. He was baffled by the betrayal of knowledge. In his mind, the more educated one became, the more understanding he or she would be of how to work in harmony with others. He was baffled that so many of the Nazis had graduate degrees, attended church, took care of their pets and families, and yet could perpetrate so much hate in our world. Why didn't learning and knowledge inoculate the German people against hatred? But this 15-year-old did not give up. He continued to study Talmud daily and live with faith that humanity was not meant for violence. Survival was not a question. He was destined for more. He strongly believed that for a Jew, to be human is to be Jewish. His humanity expressed through his story, his roots, and his tradition. When this young man was struggling with understanding a wounded faith, many other Jews in Eastern Europe were in a similar situation. They were being rounded up into ghettos like animals and were filled with fear and terror and confusion. They went from living typical lives to trying to function in the midst of Gestapo raids, deportations, and malnutrition. Life was a grim struggle for survival. Understandably, many individuals chose to give up. During this time period, Vilna was viewed as the Lithuania of Jerusalem. It was filled with intellectual richness. It was the capital city of Eastern European Jewry. When the Jews of Vilna were forced into the Vilna ghetto, the same questions arose about the value of life and the faith in God. Thanks to a few incredible minds, a lending library was opened inside the Jewish ghetto. This might not seem like a major accomplishment, but reading allows for a form of coping and regaining of one's bearings. Books were seen as treasures. The library had over 2,500 registered readers and offered the imprisoned a way to escape and forget their immediate reality. The books carried them over the ghetto walls to the wide world. Reading became a narcotic, a form of intoxication, a device by which to avoid thinking about death and destruction at their doorstep. The reading room in the ghetto library had the following sign. It said, "Books are our only comfort in the ghetto. Books help you forget your sad reality. Books can transport you to worlds far away from the ghetto. Books can still your hunger when you have nothing to eat. Books have remained true to you. Be true to the books. preserve our spiritual treasures, books. The library became a symbol of hope that Jewish culture and memory would outlive this dark time, even if its inmates would not. And not long after the development of the ghetto library, the Germans decided to begin a new campaign, the investigation of the Jewish question, the study of Jews without the Jews. The Germans wanted to create a museum filled with Jewish books to use as proof that Jews were a barbaric culture. By June of 1942, the Nazis had control of 160,000 volumes stolen from the Vilna Library. Jewish librarians and scholars were forced to determine whether books would be sent to the German museum or should they be discarded. These Jewish workers described themselves as gravediggers, unwilling prisoner gravediggers who were being forced to dispose of dismembered remains of their culture. Was it better to allow the Nazis to borrow the books and keep them safe in Germany? Kruk, the librarian, noticed the parallel between the fate of Vilna and their books. It dies in a mass grave, along with scores and scores of others. The mass grave, the trash paper, grows bigger every minute. As the people of the book, scholars, educators, and many Jews could not fathom the destruction of their historical memories and culture. This led to a new way to fight back. The Paper Brigade, individuals who risked their lives to smuggle our sacred writings to safety in and out of the ghetto. Ghetto inmates looked at them like they were lunatics. They were smuggling foodstuffs into the ghetto. The Paper Brigade were smuggling books, pieces of paper, occasionally a Sefer Torah or mezuzah. And it's worth asking why. Why did these men and women risk their lives for the sake of books and paper? They were making an existential statement, and they were performing an act of faith. The existential statement was that literature, memory, and culture were ultimate values, which were greater than the life of any individual or group. And since they were sure they would soon die, they chose to connect their remaining lives, and if necessary, their deaths, with the things that truly mattered. The book smugglers were also expressing their fate that there would be a Jewish people after the war, which would need to repossess its cultural treasures. These individuals saw smuggling books as a framework for continuing the battle against the German murderers and local collaborators. Books, Torah scrolls, Yiddish poetry, these were the treasures and history, the memories of the Jewish people. To let them burn was to admit defeat. And as they buried these treasures in a bunker, the book smugglers were radiating with the promise of a luminous future. What happened to these smuggled books? Did they survive? Was it worth the risk and the lost lives? We'll come back to that. Now let me return to that young Yiddish-speaking 15-year-old in the ghetto. A boy filled with integrity and hope and education that humanity would find a way out of the horror. What young man am I speaking about? None other than Elie Wiesel, Zichrono Livracha. Elie Wiesel was born in 1928 in the town of Sighet, now part of Romania. He was foremost an educator, writer, a political activist. He was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1986 and was called the messenger to humanity. Wiesel had delivered a message of peace, atonement, and human dignity to humanity. 2 months after entering the ghetto, he was sent to Auschwitz, and his mother and sister were immediately murdered. One would expect anyone who faces the horror of Auschwitz to lose faith in God and humanity, but there are some exceptional human beings who find other ways to cope and remain hopeful. Professor Wiesel saw his primary mission in life to educate. He believed that the role of the teacher is to help students confront darkness without despair. Over the years, many students asked Wiesel what kept him going through and after the Holocaust. How did he not give up? His answer was always the same, one word: memory. He believed in the importance of sharing a story so others could become witnesses. As a writer and speaker, he valued books and storytelling above all else. He desperately wanted to believe that by hearing someone's story and becoming a witness, we could safeguard moral clarity from this type of tragedy ever happening again. There is a beautiful, really beautiful Hasidic saying that says, "Forgetfulness leads to exile, memory to redemption." The challenge of our generation of survivors was what we would do with our memories. Would we hide them away because of how difficult it was to speak about the terror and dehumanization of our experience? Or do we tell our stories and share what can happen when the world goes mad? Wiesel described moral amnesia as an invitation to murder. Early during World War II, Hitler spoke of his high-ranking SS men and asked them, "Who remembers the Armenians?" This rhetorical question pointed out that if our society doesn't remember or seemingly even care about the slaughtering of a people, then that is permission to go ahead and do it again and again and again and again to different people. Wiesel believed that memory is the best, not just the best, but the only form of protection. We need to invoke the past as a shield for the future. If we truly allow ourselves to forget, history then may well return to us. But we have to go one step further. We cannot just hear the stories of other people. We must find ourselves in their story. One of the profound questions of each generation is, how can students become custodians of memories that are not our own? All we can say and all we can do is tell the story, and we must. But in order to tell the story, we first must hear the story. Moral education and the reading of our stories tells us what we need to hear, even when it's painful. This is the story of humanity, my friends. We must retell our stories and tell our children, don't go there. We just came from there. Every time we look away from suffering, we become a complicit bystander. So what do we do about this? We study madness in order to learn how to resist. We don't focus our energy on despair. We renounce despair as an act of will. That's the only way to continue to be able to confront and resist darkness. Hatred is a kind of insanity. We must face evil head on, fight it right away. To be human is to share a common origin. And if we share a common origin, then our destinies are intertwined. What happens to me will eventually happen to you. What happens to one group of people will foreshadow what will threaten the world. Professor Wiesel was often asked, "Do you feel hatred for the German people?" I think that most of us, if we had survived the camps, or even knowing about the terror of the camps, would say yes. But Professor Wiesel would say, you must turn hate into something creative, something positive. If you're a teacher, you turn it into good teaching. If you write, turn it into good writing. Express what you feel and let the hate become something else, but don't hate. As members of the same quest, we need to learn from the memories of our elders and pass on the wisdom and stories of what they lived through. With so few survivors of the Holocaust alive today, how do we do that? Through the passing on of memories through books and stories. So let me then finally return to the library of the Vilna Ghetto. After liquidating the majority of books, either to the German project of creating a dehumanizing museum of books and the Jewish people, and burning the rest, the book smugglers risked their lives to save the poetry in the books of the Jewish people. After the German occupation, the Jews finally thought their books were safe again. They began to remove the books from the hidden places around Vilna. Unfortunately, it was not long before the Soviets decided that Jewish culture and heritage, through the lens of books and poetry, was a threat to their non-religious society. The books had to be smuggled out or put in hiding places for a second time. The books were the treasures, and once again they were hidden or they were smuggled. On May 13th, 1945, just a few days after Nazi Germany was vanquished, a black casket stood on the bima of the Choral Synagogue, filled with tattered pieces of Torah parchment, covered with torn prayer shawls, marred by dried bloodstains. The cantor recited the El Malei Rachamim. The same prayer we'll recite shortly during Yizkor for the martyred Jews, and a eulogy was given. Birchat HaGomel was recited. The traditional prayer when someone survives danger or peril, to mark the survival from Nazi extermination. The same prayer that we recited earlier today for surviving thus far with this plague in our world. A survivor from the nearby town of Nysimian performed the ritual rending of garments, and an educator spoke. How fortunate are Vilna's Torah scrolls compared to its Jews. The scrolls will have the privilege of receiving a proper burial. They'll rise up before God's throne of glory and testify as witnesses. They saw everything that the evil ones did to us. The trucks with the scrolls, followed by procession, moved slowly in the direction of the Zaracha Cemetery, Vilna's second oldest Jewish cemetery. Once there, each participant took a scroll or a fragment out of the vehicle and placed it in an open grave. A journalist who reported on the funeral noted, all those who were present erupted in sobs and tears, and the sound of their crying was carried far beyond the cemetery. That sound will remain forever in the broken hearts of those who were there that day. As the world continues to struggle with itself, what stories will you tell? Who will remember And how will you record their stories? The Jewish people are known as the people of the book because we believe in the value and importance of recording and remembering our trials and tribulations and recording new experiences and memories. Whether we're mourning the loss of someone we love or the loss of what we thought would have been in our future, we must find a way to keep those treasured memories safe. My friends, as we sit here during this Yizkor memorial service, may we, all of us collectively, have the strength and the foresight of the book smugglers and the wisdom and the insight of Elie Wiesel to dwell in hope despite the tragedies that are around us. Amen. Gemar Chatima Tova. We'll ask you to turn to page 572. And on page 572, we'll ask you to silently read these meditations as they pertain to you or to your family, from 572 through 576. Page 577. I find it hard to believe that all we are simply vanishes. I don't think we go to a physical place. After all, the essence, the soul, is not physical. As the Israeli scholar Adin Steinsaltz once remarked, to ask where the soul goes is a nonsense question. The soul is not physical. Where does a dream go once it's been dreamt? Where does love go when it disappears? We cannot conceive of what life might be like if it is not material like this life. In this life, we are tied to the tangible, except our deepest experiences tend to be the things that are not really physical, like love, like memory. We cannot imagine what happens after death, but the poverty of our imagination does not prove that the world is not more creative than we know. It is lovely to think that the loss of this world is a ticket price to the inheritance of the next. Maybe we step through this world as if it were through a corridor. A beautiful comment by Bronson Alcott, friend of Emerson and father of Louisa May Alcott, ties together the theme of failing memory in the world to come. As he grew older, Emerson started to lose his memory. He tried to get around it once, forgetting the term umbrella. He called it the thing that strangers take away, but it troubled him. He was consoled by Alcott, who made reference to the Platonic legend that human beings know all about this world but lose that knowledge the moment we are born. Likewise, he said that as we get older, we start to lose knowledge of this world in the form of failing memory. To prepare us for the next one, each time we cannot remember something about this world. It is not a failing, but a letting go. Page 579. Adonai, through all generations we have found our home in you. Before the mountains rose up, before the birth pangs of the earth, you alone have been with us, steadfast, constant, for all time. In the end, you return us to dust, saying, "Come home now." Daughters and sons of Adam and Eve, you are mortal. In your sight, 1,000 years pass in an instant, like a fleeting watch in the night. But how brief the span of our lives. Our lives flow by in a dream. We sleep away our days. In the morning, we blossom in beauty. In the evening, we wither away. Burnt like grass in the blasting heat of summer, we perish like chaff on the wind. A human life may be 70 or 80 years for those who are blessed with strength. So many days consumed by toil and troubles. Then our time is cut short, and too soon we go into the dark. So teach us to number our days that we may bring home a heart of wisdom. Give us a sense of your presence. Nourish us with your compassion. Give us a sense of your presence, knowing that your love at the dawn of our life, let us live our days in contentment. May our moments of joy surpass the times of struggle. May the taste of sweetness of each precious day, and may the work of our hands bring fulfillment.
Adonai roi lo exal inudish yabitseni
We prayed together on page 594, a psalm of David. Together, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. On page 597, Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Kotsk would say, there is nothing more whole than a broken heart. Says Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav, we travel through this world on a very narrow bridge, and what matters most is this: do not be afraid. All that live must die, passing through nature to eternity. We have so many memories, so many people who've touched our lives, who shepherded us through difficult times, who still continue to live on through memory, through inspiration, through stories. We remember and embrace each and every one of them. As we remember this afternoon, Shirley Ruth Konigsberg, Max Konigsberg, Goldie Appel, Irving Appel, Marshall Arnold, David Arnold, Lester Arnold, Ann Weinstein, Edward Edelstein, Claire Edelstein, Stephen Goldspiel, Elaine White, Morton Getz, Edith Getz, Moses Berenson, Francis Berenson, Joseph Friedman, Judith Blauner, Martha Friedman, Jean Blatt, Harry Blatt, Lillian Cohn, Herbert Cohn, Jeffrey Berger, Dorothy G. Bush, Samuel H. Bush, Roshi P. Bush, Joseph C. Mariella, Riza B. Halpern, Nancy Cohn, Jerome Cohn, Herman Epstein, Goldie Epstein, Henry Israel, Francis Israel, Nancy Fogelson, Solomon Fogelson, Margaret Teitelbaum Fogelson, Daniel Fogelson, Jenny Doctor, Helen Doctor, Betty Dr. Schwalb, Jeremy Jacobs, Jason Jacobs, Joseph Galler, Jacqueline Galler, Paul Kemen, Marianne Kemen, Mark David Broman Goldstein, Gerald Broman, Rose Broman, Martin Goldstein, Molly Goldstein, Eugenia Ben, Simeon Soroff, Vitaly Stadnik, Nina Stadnik, George Stadnik, Oleg Gorolik, Zena Gershberg, Burkow Katz, Perla Katz, Henry Guggenheim, Annette Herman, Samuel Kushner, Lillian Kushner, Irving Herman, William Kushner, Sonia Kushner, Bess Horenstein, Helen Quinn, Charles Herman, Edith Herman, Rose Whitman, and Harry Whitman, Louis Roberts, Sally Roberts, Lawrence Hirsch, Vida T. Hirsch, Benjamin N. Katz, Rose Katz Ansel, Jack T. Zold, Helene S. Zold, Irving Feder, Bella Feder, Nicholas Klein, Helen Klein, Max Koenig, Blanche Rosenberg, Harry Rosenberg, Millie Koenig, Emmanuel Koenig, Rose Claire Goldner, Herman Olick, Belle Raskin, Jack Raskin, Tony Lechner, Dr. Robert Lechner, Tony Lechner, Deanna Sis Lechner, Lisa Chinsky, Dorothy Levy, Conrad Levy, Paul McCloskey, Joan McCloskey, Jay Ledgard, Earl Foreman, Estelle Foreman, Harry Obler, Laura Obler, Ruth Ratner, Seymour Osheroff, Dina Osheroff, Adam Paley, Pauline Laridu, Andrew Laridu, Ann Paley, Joseph Paley, Esty Epstein, Marty Petler, Abe Kaufman, Seal Kaufman, Martin Pollins, David Kahns, Ann Pollock Kahns, Alan Pomerantz, Doris Robinson, Thomas Raymond Kahns, Leonard Radin, Michael Radin, Sandra Radin, David Rappaport, Norman Brown, Sarah Brown, Nathan Rappaport, Ruth Rappaport, Eva Panis, Samuel Panis, Edward Ruskin, Sophie Y. Ruskin, Leonard R. Ruskin, Richard Sable, Kyle Sable, Clara Anschel, Jonas Anschel, David Bennett, Gussie Bennett, David Sandberg, Bertha Sandberg, Harvey Sandberg, Erwin Karlitz, Esther F. Karlitz, Daniel E. Karlitz, Esther S. Silver, Eric Spirer, Jock Rosenberg, Mildred Rosenberg, Donna Stein, Sandy Stein, Milton Stein, Henry Werpel, Kitty Werpel, James Stone, Edward Stone, Ruth Stone, Alan B. Slosby, Archie Slosby, Ethel Slosby, Aaron Weissman, Edith Weissman, Adam Weissman. And this week, specifically, we remember the yahrzeits of the following: Edith Getz, Oleg Gorolik, Shirley Ullman Konigsberg, Samuel Kushner, Fanny Laufer, Conrad Molter, Eva Gershman Panis, Marty Petler, Mary Purier, Ruth Cohn-Salk, Bert Schenker, Frank Schwartz, Rachel Schwartz, Adam Subrowski, Adam Weissman, and the recently departed Charles Rosenberg, Richard Matlow, and Harriet Stone. They continue to live on in our hearts and our minds. They continue to inspire us. They continue to live on in our fervent memory of times gone by. We'll ask you to please rise. Turn to page 598. We continue with that prayer that I talked about before, the El Malei Rachamim prayer. Merciful God, God Most High, let there be perfect rest for the souls of our loved ones who have gone into eternity. May they find shelter in your presence among the holy and pure, whose light shines like the radiance of heaven. Compassionate God, hold them close to you forever. May their souls be bound up in the bond of life eternal. May they find a home in you. May they rest in peace. And together we say, Amen. Page 605. All who mourn the loss of loved ones and at this hour remember the sweet companionship and cherished hopes that have passed away with them. Give ear to the word of comfort spoken in the name of God. Only the body has died and has returned to the dust. The spirit lives in the shelter of God's love and mercy. Our loved ones live on as well, and the remembrance of those in whom they were precious. Their deeds of loving kindness, the true and beautiful words they spoke, are treasured as an inspiration for deeds by which the living honor the dead. And when we ask in our grief, from where will our help come? Then in the strength of faith, let us answer with the psalmist, our help will come from God. God will not forsake us or leave us in our grief. Upon the Holy One, we cast our burden, and God will grant us strength to live out the days apportioned to us. All life comes from God, all souls are in God's keeping. Come then, all who share in this community of sympathy and support. Let us remain standing and hallow the name of God. On page 606, we recite together the words from the prayer we call the Prayer of Life, the words of the Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, v'alma divrach hirutei v'amlich malchutei, v'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, v'agalau v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'lomei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitbahar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal, shemei dekudsha b'richu, le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran v'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlomo rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. May the source of peace and peace to those who mourn and comfort to those who are bereaved among us. Set me as a seal upon your heart, for love is strong as death. Those who sow in tears shall reap in joy. The Spirit within is the lamp of God eternal. Amen. Amen. We will commence our Ne'ilah service in about 3 minutes. So you can take a break for about 3 minutes if you'd like.
Yeah.